crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Out of the Blue, released April 1st, 1982 in the US. It was written by Leonard Yakir and Brenda Nielson, with uncredited work from Dennis Hopper and Gary Jules Jouvenat, directed by Dennis Hopper, and released by Discovery Films in the US. In the wake of Dennis Hopper's low-budget, wildly successful directorial debut, Easy Rider, Universal Pictures rolled out a semi-independent program offering million-dollar production budgets and complete creative control to a handful of young filmmakers each year. And the program's 1970 slate was awarded to Douglas Trumbull's Silent Running, George Lucas's American Graffiti, Milos Forman's Taking Off, Easy Rider star Peter Fonda's The Hired Hand, and Easy Rider director Dennis Hopper's second directorial effort, The Last Movie. The program obviously more than paid for itself with the breakout hit American Graffiti on its own, but Forman's Taking Off was also critically acclaimed, leading directly to the release of his next and best-known film, 1975's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Wait, Silent Running wasn't like a huge success?
No, amazingly. No, it wasn't. Trumbull's Silent Running is remembered mostly as a cult sci-fi experience, but it still at least paid for itself. I think on the $1 million budget, it made like $1.6 million, so technically paid for gas. The only financial failures of the bunch came from Fonda and Hopper, but that was enough reason for the folks in charge to pull the plug on the program, and Hopper avoided the director's chair for nearly a decade after. When Out of the Blue was first coming together with the original title, Cebe, Hopper's attachment was intended to be strictly in front of the camera, cast as Don, the troubled ex-con father of the film's central character Cebe. Screenwriter Leonard Yakir struggled with producers during his brief time at the helm and was ultimately removed from the project, nearly dooming the film to non-existence until Hopper stepped up to do significant rewrites with input from other writers and even Cebe actress Linda Manz into a story that he considered to be a spiritual sequel to his own Easy Rider. The film shot for 5 weeks in the greater Vancouver area and incorporated many of Vancouver's biggest punk bands of the era. The finished product screened in competition at the 1980 Cannes Film Festival to a vocally disappointed crowd, but most subsequent reviews have been very generous. The American release was set for 1982, but poorly marketed by the North American distributor, leading to a negligible domestic box office take and poorly produced home video releases. Beloved actresses Natasha Lyonne and Chloe Sevigny, both fans of the film, spearheaded a crowdfunding campaign to raise the money for a high-quality restoration from the film's original elements, which screened at the Venice Film Festival in 2019 and landed a pristine Blu-ray release from Severin Films in 2022. The Blu-ray also features commentary from director Dennis Hopper, so I'll jump in occasionally with notes from that.
Was he alive to record for the Blu-ray?
He recorded them for a DVD release, but they were included on the Blu-ray. The first couple opening titles credit the actresses who served as the driving force of the film's latest resurrection. Chloe Sevigny and Natasha Lyonne present a Discovery Productions release, 2019 restoration of Out of the Blue, 1980. Then we get a sort of production history prologue, but I'd already put together my notes, so it's going to repeat some facts I've already shared here today.
Well, you did a good job,
Yeah.
apparently.
Easy Rider 1969 shook the box office and changed the world, especially Hollywood. Actor-director Dennis Hopper was given complete creative freedom for his second effort, The Last Movie, 1970. The title proved prophetic. Despite winning a prize at Venice, studio battles and the film's disastrous reception kept Hopper out of the director's chair for 10 long years. Hopper was hired only to act in a Canadian movie then called Cebe. Unhappy with the footage, producers fired the original writer-director and planned to shut down production. Dennis seized the opportunity to rewrite over the weekend, tailoring the script to Linda Mann's personality and talents, including her fascination with punk music. His old friend Neil Young's My Hey Hey, Out of the Blue, playing on the radio, inspired the movie's theme literally and figuratively. That Monday morning, production began again from scratch with Dennis Hopper now at the helm. What had started as a conventional family-friendly drama of a troubled young girl's rescue by a well-meaning shrink became something else entirely. Then we see a quote from director Hopper, apparently shocked to find himself running another set. For a person like me, it's a miracle that I get the opportunity to direct a film, because I don't listen to anybody. I don't have collaborators except my actors. Dennis Hopper.
I feel like this was too much.
All this
exposition
preloaded stuff,
about the making of the movie. And I
don't know. I kind of wish every movie started with a few paragraphs like, here's how this came to
make
exist.
your job a lot easier.
Wouldn't it? I probably wouldn't have to do this part.
No, I just I mean, literally, it's just too much information.
Yeah.
I actually found it incredibly difficult to read the small text. Thin white lettering on black.
Yeah. We cut now to an 18-wheeler moving swiftly down a country road as Don Barnes, played by Dennis Hopper, drives his daughter Cindy Barnes, nicknamed Cebe, played by young actress Linda Manz, to drop her off at school. She is for some reason headed to class in full clown makeup, possibly to mask the actress's age and her real-life facial scars incorporated into the story, which the character would not yet have. She's holding a teddy bear and singing Elvis's relevant song.
Put a chain around me anywhere. Sleep. Let me be your teddy bear.
Don drinks and takes unspecified pills behind the wheel and asks his daughter if he's as sexy as Elvis. She says he could be if he tried, and they laugh and kiss on the lips while he drives drunk.
This is so weird because I don't feel like we establish
Who they are
who
yet?
they are.
Yeah.
And so, I'm creeped out by this because...
At first, I thought it was a girlfriend, and then I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Well, I thought it was a child, but I'm like, did he just pick up a random child? I didn't realize
He's
that
like, I'm going to drive you to school, sweetie, but it's not his daughter.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Also, you don't take uppers and downers.
I mean, you do if you want to party, but I guess Richard doesn't want to party. For Loco! Down the same road a ways, we see a bus driver struggling and failing to start a school bus, which appears to have stalled out, blocking the road. All the kids on board are also in costumes, so I'd guess this is Halloween time, which explains the clown makeup. Back in the cab of the truck, Cebe asks her father if he has to be drunk to kiss her, and just as he denies the accusation, we're looking out the windshield as he's racing full speed toward the stalled-out school bus in the road. The kids in the bus scream and cry as the truck approaches, and just as the truck collides with the bus, seemingly tearing the vehicle in half, we cut to Cebe waking up in bed, dripping with sweat.
Now, I realize this was pretty low budget, but for this whole scene where the truck is plowing into the bus, there's a mannequin half hanging out of the bus.
door?
And
Yeah.
it looks so bad.
I do feel like they could have cut around that angle.
Yeah, I think just showing the bus impact and then just cutting away is enough to get what happened. Although I was, it's funny because I was discussing this film with my father.
Yeah.
And I was trying to describe the scene of the bus out in the road. It's like, why was the bus out in the road? It's like, we don't know. It's just out in the
it just
road.
idled diagonally across the road.
Yeah.
And if a bus stalls across traffic, would you not evacuate the bus?
That's what I said. I said, think I would, if I'm the bus driver, if I can't start this car and I'm in the middle of a road, I get the kids off the bus. But then he was asking, he was like, is it was there a curve that he couldn't see the bus? No, he had
no, it's a straightaway.
10 mile visibility.
He's just too busy making out with his daughter. Cebe looks around the room for a moment to verify it was a dream, but will come to understand that the nightmare was actually a real-life event from her past. Before the sun has even risen, we see Cebe playing with her own namesake, a Cebe radio, in the cab of her father's abandoned 18-wheeler, overgrown in vines since the accident.
Hello, this is Gorgeous. Anybody out there read me?
10-4, I read.
My handle's Gorgeous. Pretty vacant, eh? My dad's handle's Flash.
Other truckers on the frequency with her are confused by her disjointed broadcasts.
Yeah, she just seems to just be talking.
Yeah.
Sometimes she responds to people, but mostly she's just saying things.
Which is weird because she'll even say the exact opposite of that. She'll say, I'm not talking at you, I'm talking to you. And it's like, it sounds like you're talking at me.
I'm not talking at you, I'm talking to you.
That's 10-4.
Punk is not sexual. It's just aggression. 10-4, old buddies. Destroy. Kill all hippies.
The dialogue, and those last three words in particular, would go on to inspire a song entitled Kill All Hippies off Exterminator, the sixth studio album of Scottish rock group Primal Scream. The song even samples Linda Mann's voice from the scene.
10-4, old buddies. Destroy. Kill all hippies.
I didn't realize that hippies and punk folks were enemies.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Can't we all just get along?
No. What are you, a hippie? Her radio comments are so seemingly random and unrelated to the incoming messages that she almost sounds like an NPC video game character just working from a predetermined script. The old man voices can't help but hit on what sounds like a young girl.
In 4, gorgeous. We read you. Let's go dancing. How about disco? Over.
Disco sucks. Kill all hippies. Pretty vacant, eh? Subvert normality.
Sub what normalities?
She signs off the radio and hugs her teddy bear, trying to cuddle with it, laying across the seat and sucking her thumb. Neil Young's My Hey Hey starts onto the track for the first of many times in the film. In the early light of the next day, we see her walking along the freeway trying to thumb a ride, but not finding many takers, flipping off the drivers as they pass her by. She eventually gets to the diner where her mom works, and her mom's boyfriend, Paul, the owner and manager, advises her to help out in exchange for negligible pay. She accepts $1.60 to clear all the tables.
Which she does for all of 10 seconds before they say, you should go to school now.
Yep.
It's like, wait, what day is this? Is this a school day?
Who knows? When Mom finds her here, they hug and split some lunch. Mom tries to talk Cebe into staying in school so she can eventually find a man to take care of her. Mom explains there's 2 types of men in the world, the wild and sexy ones, like her imprisoned manslaughterer father Don, and the loser provider men, and she gestures to her boyfriend Paul in the background, who keeps her employed and a roof over her and her daughter's head.
Is that her boyfriend?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel very confused about the relationship between her and all of the men in this movie.
Well, I think she's a free spirit,
No,
but this is her day job boyfriend who keeps food in her mouth and keeps her employed because I don't think anyone else would.
Because then she also has her drug provider boyfriend.
Right. But she's not seeing a bunch of people right now. She's just with Paul. She is exclusive with Paul right now, and things change over the course of the film.
Okay, I guess that's my confusion, because as we move on in the film, he seems to just sit back and watch all this happen.
Yeah. A chalkboard over the cash register beside him reads, "We proudly accept y'all's cash." Do you guys recall the last time we saw signs advising against paying with credit beside the register? The episode hasn't posted yet.
It's that one we just did.
Was it Earthquake?
It was Earthquake.
Was it in the when she's eating the donuts?
No, it was in Marjo Gortner's grocery store.
Credit is dead.
that's
Don't
Don't
ask.
She reminds Cebe that Dawn is actually due for release soon, but Cebe is well aware. She shares with her mother a plan to commit suicide so she can visit Elvis in the afterlife, but Mom says she's not allowed to. She jokingly grabs Cebe by the ear and tells her she has to live her life on Earth with her mom and dad. So far, Cebe in this film could easily be identical twins with Matt Dillon's character from Over the Edge.
Oh, too bad you're my mother, you know what I mean? No.
They're even both dressed in like fully denim outfits
Yeah.
for most of their movies. Both women admit they have trouble remembering what Don looks like, so he must have been locked up a while. Mom guesses he's still sexy, even doused as he is in the blood of school children. And Paul eavesdrops from behind them, wordlessly asking, "What am I, chopped liver?" Later, we see Cebe walking around her neighborhood in her denim Elvis jacket, listening to Heartbreak Hotel on a handheld tape player. She ducks into a small greenhouse. She speaks out loud to the ghost of Elvis, wondering why he abandoned her.
Everybody left me. My father left me. Johnny Rotten left me. Sid Vicious left me. Now you, the king, has to leave me.
By Johnny Rotten, I can only assume she's referring to the 1978 breakup of the Sex Pistols, because Rotten is still alive today. Presley and Vicious were dead by the time the film was shooting. She tells Elvis that this tape deck she stole from her mother's provider boyfriend cost around $200, and when she's a famous rock star, she'll buy 10 of them. In her bedroom, she has a shrine to Elvis, and Neil Young's same song, My Hey Hey, starts up again as she smokes a joint. She seems to be applying a henna tattoo to her own hand, and then she sets fire to a black and white photo of Elvis and Priscilla Presley.
I think she was stabbing herself with actual ink.
Yeah, this is like a prison tat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But she's doing it with like a ballpoint pen or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Cebe sets the flaming paper in a dish on her nightstand in front of a framed photo of her own parents. Later, Cebe hammers spastically on a drum set in her underwear. Then we jump cut to her and her mom showing up at the prison during visiting hours to speak with Don about his impending release. He holds a phone to each ear so he can talk to them both at once. He seems distracted by his years-older daughter, possibly regretting the missed years, but also maybe guilty about the scars on her face, which are later blamed on the crash he caused. He tries briefly to apologize for all he's done wrong and explains it's been 5 years since he was put away and he hasn't wanted her to see him like this. He's managed to find employment upon his release working a tractor in a junkyard, but I feel like his particular charges might disqualify him from continuing to work with heavy machinery. He seems to think he can save up enough to rebuild his rig, and Cebe is excited. Don's hands start shaking, and when Mom comments on it, Don lies that his time is up, and he aggressively urges them to leave.
Time's up, okay? I'm gonna see you real soon, okay? God, please forgive me, Cebe.
I want you to come home now.
Kathy, please get her out of here. I'll see you real soon, okay, Cebe? Please, Kathy.
Okay, I'm okay, honey. Sorry.
Time's up.
Okay.
Please.
All right, okay.
It seems like he just doesn't want them to see him cry.
Yeah. I thought that there was going to be it's like, oh man, maybe prison he's learned some lessons in prison and he's trying to become a better person.
Turns out, nope. Mom's name is Kathy, by the way, so I'll use that name moving forward. As they leave the room, Don puts his head down to cry for a moment before collecting himself. We see Cebe back at home talking to herself with more lyrics from Neil Young's song.
See, it's better to burn out than to fade away on me.
Surprisingly to me anyway, this particular Neil Young song is the origin of the phrase, "It's better to burn out than fade away."
It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's from this song, which was famously referenced at the end of Kurt Cobain's suicide note.
I mean, I just assumed the phrase predated this song. That's interesting.
That's what I would have thought too, but I looked into it and it's like, no, it seems like that's like the original use of it.
Well, I mean, even before Kurt Cobain's note, it had been
right. Yeah, and it's in other songs too,
yeah.
but after this song. Cebe walks around a house later listening to Heartbreak Hotel again until we cut to the mechanized inner workings of a bowling alley and follow a ball as it is returned to the bowlers by the machine. Cebe's mother Kathy is bowling with her manager boyfriend Paul. Cebe and her friends come down the stairs into the place, but when she notices her mom, she turns to hide. A man at the bar we'll come to know as Charlie notices the girls and points them out to another older dude drinking there. He explains that one of Cebe's friends is the daughter of their acquaintance nicknamed Basketball Sally. Soon after, he notices Cebe and recognizes her as the daughter of his best friend, Don Barnes. It's like, hasn't been that long. How did you not recognize your best friend's daughter?
Yeah, she's growing up, huh?
He steps away from the bar to talk to Cebe and asks how she got the scars on her face. She reminds him they're from the accident, and he seems to regret asking. He asks her to deliver a big kiss from him to her dad the next time she sees him or writes to him. When she walks away to speak with her mother, Charlie follows her. Cebe asks her mother if she can spend the night at her friend Carol's home, and when she promises to get to school on time, Kathy relents. Now, Charlie speaks up to make his presence known, and Kathy hugs him excitedly while Paul sits unamused. Charlie says a lot of unexpectedly flirty things to the wife of his supposed best friend, and Kathy giggles like a schoolgirl to hear him say things like she still has nice tits. Suddenly, there's a harsh edge to the man, and Charlie is commenting on her missing wedding ring and seeming to accuse her of cheating on his friend even while he wraps his arms tightly around her. Inexplicably, Paul takes this moment to point out that with Cebe spending the night at her friend's house, they can make love tonight. Loud enough for Charlie to hear it.
Yeah.
Charlie takes these words as his cue to exit, but gives Paul a piece of his mind on the way out.
You know something, Paul? You are an asshole.
Well, Charlie, I've known that about you for a long time.
So, which is it? Have they know each other and they see each other all the time, or they haven't seen each other in 5 years?
I think they all live in this town. They just don't interact all the time.
But
they probably were all in the same high school class.
Kathy seems to act like, oh my God, it's been so long since I've seen you.
Yeah.
But then Paul and Charlie seem to act like, oh yeah, I see you all the time.
I think she doesn't see Charlie very often. She only saw Charlie when Don would bring him around. And she's not usually being taken out to these places like this bowling alley where she might even encounter him. Like, she's not going to have any reason to go to the places that Charlie would be usually. Kathy storms out of the bowling alley, furious with Paul for spilling the beans about their relationship to Don's best friend. This will clearly come back to haunt them. On their way through the city, Cebe and her friends are catcalled by a group of guys, but Cebe turns the interaction around on them and makes one of them do a spin for her.
Nice car, nice pants, nice ass. We'll think about it.
They say a bunch of stuff, and she goes like, I hope you get an erect tonight.
Yeah.
But I had to go back because I thought, did you say I hope you get an erection tonight?
That did sound like that. They continue on to a local movie theater and buy seats in a soundproof balcony where they're free to make jokes for the entire screening.
I was like, there's glass between them.
Yeah.
And the
how
screen.
cool would that be? Like, I wish that all the teenagers were locked in soundproof booths for these things.
I mean, I assume that there's, well, it looked like it was a silent movie anyway. So
it wasn't, but
okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I assume that there are speakers that are piping the audio in there?
Yeah. Surprisingly, the film they've come to see is Charlie Chaplin's 1936 comedy Modern Times, but we only see them watching the closing scene.
I hate happy endings. Where's the villain?
After the movie, they make plans to sneak into Big Al's and enjoy some live music and drinks. Of course, they're underage, and only Cebe is willing to try her luck inside. She quickly orders a rum and coke, and the waitress brings a bouncer to the table who seems to know Cebe by name.
They all know her, which is, again, how do you know her if she's not allowed in here?
Yeah. The bouncer gives her the option to leave peaceably, but when she rejects it, he carries her out the door. She takes a karate stance on the outside steps, challenging the man to a fight.
I must have been off balance. I could have took you any day. What are you laughing at?
Hey, Cebe, come on, I love you.
Yeah, you love me, my foot.
Just take it easy, sweetie. Just take it easy.
Back at Cebe's home, it looks like Charlie has usurped Paul's place in Kathy's life, which unfortunately means that Kathy is tying off her arm to partake in heroin with the man instead of the relatively harmless plans Paul had in mind. Cebe sees them through the front window from outside and doesn't want to be here for this, and we cut to her in the back of a pickup truck moving down the freeway the next morning. Then we cut back to her standing outside the window the night before, and then back to the pickup truck, and back and forth a few more times. It's an editing style I've only ever seen once before as a regular scene transition in Hopper's Easy Rider, so it was definitely an intentional reference. It rolls into a long montage of Cebe hitching rides further and further from home. At one point, we see her climbing the steps to an industrial park and jumping around at the top like Rocky Balboa with her arms in the air. As night starts to fall, we see Cebe following a guy with a tape deck in his hand, singing along to an Elvis song wearing an Elvis shirt. When the man finishes the track, he turns to bow into camera, possibly not understanding that it doesn't exist in the universe of the film.
Is your heart well pain? Shall I come back?
Cebe applauds the performance, as do voices behind the camera, probably Hopper and crew. We follow Cebe around the streets at night as she stumbles upon a local chapter of Fight Club. The men employ boxing gloves in their bout on the sidewalk. They move steadily down the street as they fight, even passing a police officer who does nothing to intervene. Cebe hops in a taxi, presumably without money to pay for a ride. Instead, she tries to relate to the driver personally and talks to him about punk music and gets his thoughts on disco.
Disco sucks.
Hell yeah. Punk is here forever.
He tells her they can get stoned and then wander out to a Pointed Sticks concert, a well-known punk band from the area. She asks his thoughts on Elvis, and he seems indifferent. She shows him her prison tattoo, which is apparently supposed to look like Elvis. I did not see Elvis in this shape.
Supposed to be?
Yeah, it's like in cursive.
Yeah.
Blob.
Instead of driving her home, they head to a whorehouse, and the taxi driver pushes her up the stairs into a room with several naked women. He hands Cebe a pipe in a small room, and another woman sitting near them raises her skirt to show off her crotch to the girl. Cebe takes a puff, and the man begins to play a song on the guitar. After a moment, the woman showing off her bush stands over Cebe as she lays on a bed, sucking her thumb and trying to ignore the situation. The cab driver shakes Cebe awake as the bottomless woman swings her vagina closer and closer until Cebe can reach an empty bottle, smashes it over the man's head, and makes a run for it. In the commentary track, Hopper mentions the original co-screenwriter Brenda Nielson based this scene on a real-life experience of a woman who actually castrated and killed the man who brought her here. They interviewed her in prison serving a life sentence.
I feel like this scene could have used a little bit more fault because the guy brings her here, but then just kind of sets her down and leaves her alone. Now,
but he's shaking her around when she fights back.
Yeah, but I feel like I thought that he was going to be trying to rape her,
right?
And like he doesn't actually attempt to do anything to her.
Well, I think that's because she has the wherewithal not to let it get that far.
Yeah.
That the only reason he would have to bring her here would be to try and get her to engage with this woman and pay for them to do things to him together. And as soon as she figures out what his plan was, she's like, all right, I got to hit the eject button as soon as I can here.
Yeah, not that I fault her for trying to get out of there, but I feel like he probably would have just let her leave.
Well, I mean, he kind of does.
Yeah.
She smashes a bottle over his head and he does almost nothing to follow her. We cut now to the Pointed Sticks concert that the taxi driver suggested heading to tonight. Maybe not the best place for Cebe to hide from him. This guy said he was going to come to this show later. The lead singer of the Pointed Sticks looks like a baby John Mayer. So much so that I had to look it up and see that John Mayer was 3 years old when they shot him.
So yes?
That's definitely him. He was a punk when he was a baby. Backstage after the song, a guy Cebe met at the show leads her to the band's drummer, Tony, in a crowded bathroom.
Hey, this is Cebe. She wants to meet you.
A fight breaks out between a few punks in the room, and Tony leads Cebe back to the stage just in time for the band's next song. He positions her beside his seat at the drum set, and they jump right into a song called Somebody's Mom. He seems a competent drummer and keeps the beat even when it gets fast and complicated. Toward the end of the song, he worries Cebe is bored, and so he puts her in his own chair and guides her arms to drum the last quarter of it. She's having a great time, and when it ends, the crowd cheers for her, and she celebrates like a rock star backstage. We cut to Cebe driving a truck after the show, and the kid who introduced her to Tony is in the back seat with a camera, but in the front seat are 3 topless girls posing for the camera, and occasionally smashing against Cebe as she tries to drive. Eventually, they leap into her lap, and she seems to lose control of the vehicle, and we flash cut back to her father plowing into the school bus in the road. The bus crash was recorded in a single take with 5 cameras, so you can see bodies smashed in the wreckage from every angle without having to destroy a second bus full of live school children. No, that's not true. They didn't kill anyone. We cut to a police station where Cebe is being released on bail, and then to a psychiatrist's office. Dr. Brean, the psych here, is played by Perry Mason himself, Raymond Burr, and his contract for the film basically required that they shoot a full 3-act story for the character, but Hopper had abandoned the psych story in his rewrite, but agreed to shoot the psychiatrist's entire story, fully expecting to leave 90% of it on the cutting room floor.
I was going to say, there's no way Burr would have done this film with
for these 2 scenes.
These 2 scenes, yeah.
Burr also helped with musician Neil Young to pad the film's Canadian quota to qualify for tax breaks, but it's possible they were disqualified from the program anyway when Hopper was brought on to direct. Kathy is here too, crying about the life she's raised her daughter to live. Apparently, the car she was driving was stolen, and her claim is that she had no idea. The judge has released her with the condition that she not run away or skip school anymore. Cebe doesn't seem mentally present for this conversation, and instead distracts herself with a small air gun toy that uses wind power to levitate a ball in the air. It's pretty fucking cool, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, though, for a psychiatrist's office who wants people to pay attention, he has a lot of, like, toys and coloring books. I get that he's probably a child psychologist, but it just seems like if you want someone to be focused, stop giving them stuff.
Kathy tries to make a lot of excuses for her daughter and promises on Cebe's behalf that she'll be better from now on.
Her daddy's coming home. We've got to be a family again.
The psychiatrist offers her an alternative to living at home by staying here at the facility, but she claims to want to go home. We cut right to the welcome home party for Dawn Barnes, and the house is crowded with old friends and decorated with streamers and balloons. Kathy tries introducing him to everyone, and he doesn't seem to recognize anybody until he finds Charlie and Charlie's friend from the bowling alley bar. Charlie invites Dawn for a quick dance in the living room to speak in private, and then they move to the kitchen for some actual secrecy. While they talk, a man walks in through the back door with an angry look on his face. The man is bald with a big bushy mustache, and we saw him last night working the register at the bowling alley bar, but he never introduced himself there. Now, the man steps into the kitchen where Dawn is sitting with his inner circle friends and family. When the partying crowd finally notice the stranger among them, the man asks Dawn if he's out of prison. Dawn pokes fun for a minute because obviously he's here in the kitchen, so he's not in prison. The man tells Dawn to cut the shit and send his daughter to bed so they can have a real conversation. He makes it clear he has something serious to discuss, and Dawn's patience is wearing thin. Eventually, Cebe recognizes the man as the father of one of her school friends, and the man asks if she happened to know his son.
Did you know my son? Did you know my son? Ride the bus with my son. Remember my son? Remember my son?
Emphasizing the past tense to indicate that his son is no longer here and likely a victim of Dawn's vehicular manslaughter. Once Dawn gets the point of the visit, he tries to make amends by dumping a drink over his own head as if that were remotely comparable to what this man has been put through. He's obviously not thinking clearly because he moves on to even worse excuses to explain his actions away.
And there are a lot of other kids in there besides your son. Now, am I going to have to meet every fucking asshole like you, man?
Sure, I did terrible things to you, but I did the same terrible things to a lot of other people.
I also think that Dawn is intentionally humiliating himself to get out of this situation.
Maybe.
I think he's just like, I'm going to make myself look so unbelievably pathetic that this guy's not even going to waste his time.
It wouldn't affect my anger at all.
Well, it wouldn't affect yours, but it seemed to affect this guy. So this guy's this isn't worth it.
I wondered if maybe his point wasn't that, like, you're being selfish coming back and getting revenge by yourself, because I hurt a lot of other people's children. Like, you should all team up and find me somewhere. He thinks he can win the man over by sharing a drink with him, and in his meandering reaction, he accidentally stumbles upon the right sentence.
I'm sorry about your son.
But then immediately negates the closest thing to an apology he's said so far.
But I didn't have nothing to do with it. Hey, motherfucker.
Charlie takes this moment to try and scare the angry man away by shouting at him to get out of Don's house. Don joins him in this strategy, and the men scream in his face together until he leaves. We cut now to Don's new job at the junkyard, where he drunkenly pilots a tractor through flocks of seagulls eating garbage.
Yeah, I'd say it's more of a landfill than a junkyard.
Maybe, yeah. This is all done to the tune of Neil Young's song Thrasher. We cut away from the landfill to Don drinking beside his car, waiting to pick Cebe up from school. At first, he hides his beer from her, as if he's embarrassed, but then he pulls it out and admits to having it. Cebe obviously doesn't care, and Don points out an attractive woman nearby, so Cebe advises him to hit on her. But instead, they both get in the car to leave.
I thought he was pointing out students.
Oh, maybe, yeah. He invites her on a picnic and lets her steer the car while he works the pedals. He reminds her of a time he pulled her out of school to go on a random road trip to Mexico and suggests they try something like that again.
You remember the last time I pulled you out of school and we killed a busload of children?
Man, that was fun. But if they went to Mexico on a random school day, that means this has to be like California or like the Southwest, right? Like they didn't do that from Massachusetts.
From Canada?
Yeah, they didn't go from Vancouver to Mexico.
Well, yeah, I mean,
unless Vancouver just calls America Mexico.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe they do.
Yeah, that's actually probably true.
Don tells her they'll fix up his truck and then go for the drive. He thinks he could scrape together the money to fix it within 3 months if he keeps his job and borrows the rest.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have to go to school no more. Oh, dynamite. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Please do it.
We cut now to Kathy clearing tables at her job, and Paul is following her around the dining room, asking to see her again. Evidently, she hasn't made it clear that she's back with Don, or the guy just has a death wish and wants to get on Don's bad side. Don pulls into the parking lot with Cebe standing in his front seat, waving her arms to get Kathy's attention. For some reason, Paul expects Kathy to break it off with Don right now and leave her marriage to be with him. Don comes in to drag her out to the car, and she asks for a sip of his beer, which seems less like she needed a beer and more like she's trying to keep as much of it outside of Don as she can. She informs him that she's still on the clock and can't leave, but Don points out the restaurant is empty. She doesn't think she can get the time off cleared with Paul, so Don asks on her behalf. Paul flat out won't let her go because she's on the clock, and Don thanks him as if he'd approve the time off.
Hey, man, ain't nobody in the fucking place.
Just stay here.
Give me a fucking break. Thank you, Paul. Thanks a lot. See, I told you. Isn't that easy?
Dawn heads back to the car, and Kathy approaches the counter to request her purse from behind it. Paul tries and fails to shame her for not standing up to Dawn, and she throws the comment in his face.
Kathy, why didn't you stand up to him?
Like you just did?
It's actually the perfect response for Paul, because while his heart's in the right place, he's not using his brains at all in this movie.
Yeah.
Paul is reluctant to even give her the purse from behind the counter, but it seems like she's leaving the diner for the last time here.
He says, get it yourself. It's like, but it's right there.
Yeah, you're right. That is ridiculous. Here you go. Later, we see Dawn driving to a picnic spot while Cebe and Kathy sing Elvis's Teddy Bear some more, recalling the film's opening scene. She climbs all over Dawn behind the wheel, and Kathy warns her she'll cause a wreck. They're on the beach for a picnic less than 20 minutes before Kathy is begging to leave because it's freezing out here. She collects all their things, and as they walk back to the car, Dawn lets her know how offended he was that she suggested earlier he might crash the car.
I just don't want enough, Dad, that's all.
Yeah, how do you think that made me feel when you said that,
I don't want to be
You know where
your
I've been,
tiger.
huh? I ain't gonna kill nobody, Kathy. You don't think that bothered me, though?
I don't want to be your
Do
lion.
you?
It's a terrifying position to be put in because who knows what he's capable of, but she has to pretend to feel bad about suggesting he might kill people in a car accident, which he has famously done in the past and denies all responsibility for. As they get in the car, Cebe seems disappointed to find the picnic ending already and makes her parents promise to come back tomorrow. Tomorrow? No. We jump back to the landfill that employs Dawn to do what? I'm not quite sure.
He just seems to be like
He's
driving.
like a scarecrow, but he's a scare gull. Right now, we see him running around in the dirt screaming at seagulls with a cigarette and a pint of whiskey in his hand. He's surprised when he notices Cebe sitting on his car with her bike in the backseat, meaning he wasn't running around screaming to entertain her. He was just working a little overtime.
Yeah. You can scare the birds for free.
She tries to impress him by claiming she chewed a penny in half. She shows him something in her hand, and he looks at it. If she legitimately did that, I would be more impressed than he is.
Shit in half, huh?
Metal teeth.
But I can't imagine she did. Like, this has to be something where she cut it in half and pretended she chewed it, right? You can't chew a penny in half.
I mean...
I'm going to fucking try it now. Thanks a lot, movie. Send you all my dental bills for when I never go to the dentist anyway. He tells her to get in the front seat so they can leave and dips a hand into his jacket to retrieve a bundle of 5 dynamite sticks and makes no effort to conceal them.
And he just rolls it into the back and then proceeds to light a cigarette.
Right.
What's that dynamite for?
Oh, this? Don't get cute with me, man.
He claims dynamite is just a tool he found here at the landfill and he could sell it for good money.
I don't know why you would have dynamite
at a landfill.
At a landfill?
I don't think it's for the landfill. I think someone threw out dynamite and he found it. She jokes that he might blow up the car by accident while he struggles to remember where the keys go in his dashboard. Recognizing his impairment, she asks to drive, but he won't surrender the wheel. I'm sure Hopper was actually drunk here operating the car. Do you guys recall the last time we saw Hopper drunk driving on set? The production team tried to take the keys from him, but he started a physical fight and then drove off with a 6-pack and a camera loaded for 6 minutes of film, but he came back an hour later with an empty 6-pack.
Have we covered more Hopper films?
Mm-hmm.
Have we only covered one?
Maybe.
I don't remember what we covered with
See,
him.
that car of yours is like a runaway knife, man. You know what I'm saying?
I can't.
No?
I can't picture it.
There's nothing worse than holding up a dead body, except when it's yours. You don't remember any of this?
No.
King of the Mountain.
I don't even remember that title.
That was
the one where they're
racing on Mulholland
Drive.
Oh, man. Was Dennis Hopper in that movie?
Yeah. We jump cut to an ice cream parlor where Cebe is having lunch with her friends. She overhears a classmate, the daughter of Anderson, the man who interrupted Dawn's homecoming party.
Cebe's dad's out of jail, and my dad's going to get him for killing my little brother.
What the fuck you talking about? Come here! I said, come over here.
The girl pretends not to hear Cebe, so Cebe grabs her by her sweatshirt and drags her across the parlor to shout at her. She takes the girl's ice cream, which is bright blue, and smears it all over her face.
What do you think you're doing?
I painted your face blue. Looks better that way. And if you don't shut up and get out of here, I'm gonna take you out of the blue and put you into the black.
Meaning, I guess that she'll take her from being painted blue with ice cream to being unconscious. Obviously, these words in particular come from the lyrics of Neil Young's song, but as if it wasn't an obnoxious and ill-fitting enough reference to the song, she literally pulls out a tape player, which is cued exactly to the line about pulling someone out of the blue and into the black.
Out of the blue and into the black.
We cut to the landfill again under Jim Burns' song, Sorry Just Won't Do. Burns actually appears in the film, credited as party singer, so I think he might be at Big Al's place, because I don't think anyone's singing at the house.
I think there was somebody singing.
Well, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Then. Suddenly, Anderson, the father of the dead boy, arrives to the junkyard with boxes of garbage. He tosses them in the field and walks over to Dawn's boss to have a muted conversation. Dawn can already see where this is going and tosses back another pint of whiskey in the tractor while he watches the men speak silently. The father walks back to his car to leave, and Dawn's boss gestures for him to get out of the tractor. Instead of surrendering the vehicle, he raises the blade in the air and drives it full force through the boss's office shack. He drives back and forth over the debris and laughs through the window at the man who just fired him, or was probably about to.
Yeah, I guess. We'll never
That guy said you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I want to give you $2 extra an hour. Oh, you just destroyed my house. I actually live here.
I mean, so I have a lot of problems. Like, one, the fact that you wouldn't know who this guy is you're hiring. Like,
yeah, they didn't look into it at all. It's like, why is he in prison? Don't ask any questions.
Yeah, like you're literally, he got a job through the prison.
That's fine. I just need to know if he can operate heavy machinery. Oh yeah, he can operate it right into a fucking school bus.
Yeah, so yeah, it doesn't add up that you would know that he's an ex-con. I'm sure you would inquire as to the nature of his crime.
Also, he shows up every day with a pint of whiskey in his hand.
Yeah. But this one thing was, now you've brought your home life to work with you. And that's the
I
one
told
thing.
you, 3 shacks. You destroy my shack 3 times and you're done. That's 3 strikes. 3 shacks, 3 strikes. Next, he stupidly chases his boss around with the blade down, daring the man to call the police and send him back to prison for good. It's like, this is now attempted murder, what you're doing, if you get any closer.
I mean, he could go back to prison just for the
Right,
shack part.
that's true, yeah. Dawn finally exits the tractor and blows a couple snot rockets into the garbage before leaving.
That'll show him.
Yeah, as if he's much better than this place. That night, we see him still in the junkyard hat, leaning against a post in the middle of a restaurant with live music. When the camera rotates around their table later, we'll see this is Big Al's, the same place that threw Cebe out earlier in the week. He's here drinking with Charlie, who's trying to cheer him up and failing. When Charlie learns exactly what happened today, he's already planning revenge.
Who fired? It's a simple question. Who fired?
Same guy, man. You want to answer? Same guy, man.
What same guy?
Same guy, man.
What same fucking guy?
Anderson, man.
Same guy, man.
Same guy, man. What guy?
Same guy,
Same
man.
guy, man. Same guy, man. After some pestering, Don admits that Anderson, the angry father, came to the job and got him fired. Charlie promises to make the man pay for costing Don his job, as though the man didn't pay up front.
Yeah. So this is another one of those really, really long takes.
Yeah.
It's I clocked it at like 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah. Because it rotates around the table pointed at the stage for the second half.
Yeah. Which, does that violate the 180-degree rule?
If he goes more than 180 degrees. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't counting them. Fuck. Too fast. Don says he can't go after that kind of revenge if he wants to keep his family, and Charlie reminds Don that he took care of Don's family while he was in prison and doesn't need to be reminded of how important they are to him. Later that night, we cut to the exterior of the bowling alley where Anderson works, and as soon as the man steps into frame, we see him clobbered from behind with a lead pipe and bleeding profusely from the head.
I think they also slit his throat, don't they?
Yeah, possibly. There's a lot of blood on the back and front of his face.
Yeah, I like those. Like, I can't do that, man. Cut to.
Let's murder him.
We can't just go kill a guy. The gang murders.
Yeah, the gang murders the guy. It's Charlie too. It's perfect. Charlie and Don wear leather gloves to hide their fingerprints on the weapon and leave Anderson's body in the street beside his car to walk away into the night. We cut back to Cebe's home and the framed photograph of Kathy and Don in her room. Cebe has drawn a Mad Magazine cartoon version of the photograph with their parents' mouths open and their tongues hanging out. In the drawing, Don also has a knife stabbed through his head from temple to temple and bleeding from the exit wound. She cuts her drawing into just the right dimensions so it will fit in the frame. She can hear her parents arguing about his newfound unemployment in the next room, and she starts to apply makeup to her face. She puts on her leather jacket and cap and pretends to play some of her instruments for a moment before tossing everything on the floor again and spinning back toward her bed. She can hear her father slapping her mother as she drops to the floor with her teddy bear and sucks her thumb some more, which we've basically been taught is a trauma response of hers. The next morning, she uses her teddy bear to wipe the frost from her bedroom window and sees she's already late for the bus. She runs out the door seconds late to catch it, and the girl from the ice cream parlor laughs at her through the back window for missing her ride, apparently not having gotten the word of her father's brutal murder outside the bowling alley last night. Cebe flips the girl off in return and then walks along the freeway to school, where she tries to sneak into class late, but the teacher notices her the second he turns around.
That is, that all the algebraic facts that you... Who do you think you're trying to kid?
Nobody.
You have a note?
No.
You have an explanation?
Yeah, I missed the bus.
He orders her to the office to collect a note if she expects to attend class today. On her way out, the blue-faced girl picks on her some more, and she calls the girl a suckhole, further enraging the teacher.
Look, get down to the principal's office.
I thought teachers were supposed to help you.
Go to the principal's office! Go!
Okay,
Go!
I'll go.
Get going now!
Pushy about it.
Instead of the principal's office, where she would obviously not go, we see her later on in the school's football field, where the marching band is practicing. She wanders carelessly through some football practice and then right through the marching band and cheer squad practices, clotheslining the same blue-faced girl on her way through the field. So this must be later the same day since they're not in the math class anymore. Cebe is sent back to the office of the psychiatrist character, Dr. Brean, who is disappointed with her failure to regularly attend school. Evidently, the principal is seeking to expel her, and Brean is weirdly judgmental, considering the girl has parents who should probably be waking her up in time to catch the bus. It's not entirely her fault, but she's old enough to catch it on her own.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at this point a professional would make inquiries as to sending someone to get a view of her home life.
Yeah, and that's essentially what is happening here.
Principal wants you out of the school. Judge is probably going to take you out of your home.
I don't care.
You don't care? I thought you did care. I thought you wanted to stay at home.
He warns her the path she's on leads to detention centers and prisons, but she threatens to break free and run away every time. He asks if she could have whatever she wanted, what that would look like, and she thinks her life would be better if she and her mother moved to the city without Dawn. And again, Brean is confused because her mother Kathy made Dawn sound like a stabilizing presence in their lives. The psychiatrist wonders what she's not sharing about her father that leaves him out of her vision of a happy future, but she doesn't respond.
This is literally his job.
Right.
To investigate this stuff. I don't understand why he doesn't do more here.
Well, he probably does
in the original draft.
The original
well, that's probably true.
We cut back to Cebe sitting in the wreck of her father's rig that night. Then, back to her home, where Mom is tying off her arm with a belt in the bathroom to get her fix. Apparently, the rig is parked in their front yard, just off the road, because she hears Dawn and Charlie arrive home, talking loud enough for her to hear about them having taken Anderson's money and bought champagne with it. So, after they knocked him down, they took his wallet? Because we didn't see that happen.
I thought they grabbed his briefcase.
Oh, they did take a briefcase, that's right. But as far as I know, she has no idea they've killed him yet. Unless they didn't? Is it possible they're suggesting he survived the assault, which is why his daughter was attending school the next morning?
Yeah, maybe he just got hurt.
I mean, it looks a lot like we killed this guy to end the threat to ourselves, but why would his daughter not know by the next day? Why would she just head off to school like nothing? It's weird.
Are we sure that this is the daughter of Anderson and not the daughter of some other
victim? I don't know. It seems weird to complicate it any further than that. But it's also like he has a daughter in her class and a son that was killed in the accident.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Now Cebe is back in her room and apologizes to her teddy bear for not bringing him with her to the truck tonight. Do you guys recall the last time we saw our lead character talk to a teddy bear this much?
Oh, not trogs, the little gremlin dudes, the pit.
That's it. It's called the pit. What are the monsters called?
Troglodytes. I have no idea.
Oh, what were they called?
I'll give you a clue. Ready? La 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 la.
Trill something? Trilobites?
Close. Trolologs.
Trolologs. Cinnabites was my next one.
That's good.
Cinnabons.
Cinnabites. Is that the tiny little pretzel bites with cinnamon on them? Or is that the villains from the Hellraiser series?
Universe, yeah.
I knew it was one of those.
Both.
They're both delicious. Cebe lights a cigarette in her room and sits at her desk to apply more makeup. Coming out of the bathroom where Kathy was shooting up, she looks very relaxed. She wanders into the kitchen to ruffle the hairs of her boys, Charlie and Dawn, and asks them where they've stumbled upon the money they've spent tonight. Charlie makes up a story that he and Dawn have started a business together in the 24 hours since he was fired from the junkyard, and somehow they've already brought in money through this new business.
Killing is a mighty good business.
There you go. Dawn claims that their new business involves fixing his rig and starting a private trucking service. Kathy seems to believe every word of it and congratulates them on this new endeavor. In her room, Cebe's lips are now blood red, and she slicks her hair back with thick green gel that almost resembles aloe vera. An unintelligible argument breaks out between Charlie and Dawn in the kitchen, and Kathy tries to break it up by following Charlie out of the room. Dawn sits confused in the kitchen, terrified he might be back in prison soon, and equally terrified that he couldn't drive the truck even if it ran. 10 feet away, Charlie takes the insane risk of making out with Kathy and pulling out one of her tits to fondle. Kathy is clearly enjoying herself under the influence, and Charlie ramps things up another 10 notches by sticking his hand up her robe and fingering her right out in the open in the living room. Kathy can still hear Dawn panicking in the kitchen and tries to talk him off the ledge while still enjoying the feeling of Charlie's hand between her legs. Cebe's hair is now slicked back in a mullet, and she's even drawn sideburns with makeup on both sides of her face. Dawn's ranting has somehow crossed an invisible line and become so unhinged that it's scaring Kathy.
Talk to him, man. Get out of here. He's getting weird.
What the fuck
Get out of here,
should I
Charlie, please.
It's like, he was so fucking normal up until just now. Charlie tends to agree, and they head back to the kitchen to close out the night. Charlie reaches toward Dawn's face to hug him, and I worried that he would smell his wife on Charlie's hands, but Kathy intercepts the hug. We cut back to Cebe's room as she swipes up the mullet portion of her haircut over her head into a full pompadour. She can hear her father in the kitchen giving his friend Charlie permission to sleep with her.
I don't think she's ever been fucking kissed.
Kathy is set to sobbing, not because Dawn is trying to hand off their daughter to his friend, but because she's terrified Cebe might be a lesbian. Kathy seems to find their plan to pair up Charlie and Cebe an amusing solution. Cebe can hear them stumbling toward her door and picks up a chair to fend them off if they come in. She won't answer the door or unlock it for them, so Dawn has to break it down himself. Kathy doesn't want to be here for this and closes herself in the bathroom. When Dawn breaks in, he wrestles the chair away from Cebe. She sits on her bed and screams in his face about how she hates men while slapping him as hard as she can. Dawn asks Charlie for a bit of privacy and his friend steps away. Dawn calls Kathy in to help him, and her voice is almost comically and cartoonishly high-pitched.
All right, I'm coming.
She's shocked to see her daughter slapping Dawn around. Dawn tells Kathy to grab Cebe's nightgown, and she seems to willingly change into it, but demands privacy. It seems like they're all moving forward with the plan of appointing Charlie to take Cebe's virginity. Cebe can't believe her mom is letting them do this to her, as she grabs Kathy by the hair and shakes her head violently.
I hate fucking men. I hate him. You fucking I hate him. I hate him.
Cebe orders her mom out of the room and looks around at all the punk and Elvis stuff and starts sucking her thumb again. Across the hall, Cebe can make out in darkness the image of her mother's legs as she masturbates in bed. Dawn joins her there and quickly has his pants down with her until he realizes Cebe is watching them through the open door. The camera zooms tight against Cebe's bedroom window from outside the house and then zooms in across her room to posters on the wall. Time seems to have passed, and it looks like Charlie's gone and Dawn is here in Cebe's bedroom beside her. He asks if she remembers cuddling her teddy bear and sucking her thumb while they sat in his truck together, watching lights from passing traffic swing by. She tells him she still sucks her thumb, and she remembers everything he did to her back then. She grabs him hard by the hair and yanks his face toward her lap.
You fucking ain't right, I remember. Do you remember, Daddy?
She stuffs a pair of cotton panties in his mouth and then slaps him hard across the face before dragging him closer to her crotch. The image practically repeats itself in David Lynch's Blue Velvet, again with Hopper staring into the crotch of Isabella Rossellini, who also stuffs a bit of cloth in Hopper's mouth while he stares. In this film, while Dawn is distracted, Cebe pulls out a pair of barber shears and swings them down into his neck multiple times, tearing open his carotid artery. As he falls backward off her bed, his neck spurts a huge half-pint splash of blood across her bedroom floor. She stands over her dying father and pushes the cotton panties back into his gaping mouth. Sometime later, she flicks on a light in her mother's bedroom, and we see she has a safety pin poked through her cheek and then pinched closed inside her mouth.
Yeah, Jesus.
Kathy's very hungover and doesn't want to get up, but Cebe insists she has something important to say about her father. She leads Mom out of the house to the broke-down rig in the yard. They sit together in the cab, and Kathy begs her to explain why they've come out here.
Tell me, what do you know about him I don't know anyway, huh? What do you know?
Cebe lights up a cigarette, which her mother discourages, and then Cebe uses the lit cigarette to ignite a fuse under the dash. It's pretty obvious to us where this fuse leads, but the sight of the sparks and the sound it makes is enough to scare Kathy on its own. Cebe talks about Sid Vicious and how when he died, he took his loved ones with him.
That's totally meaningless. I don't get the point. I'm leaving.
That's right.
Oh, baby, no.
That's right.
The fuse ignites the dynamite bundle, and the truck cab explodes in the yard, leaving a flaming wreck for the credits to roll over. The end. In the original draft, Cebe was also supposed to kill her father for what he'd done, but in that draft, she would spend the remainder of the film in therapy with Burr's Dr. Brean character, who helps Cebe and Kathy heal as a family.
But she did kill him.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was original to the story, but then when Dennis Hopper rewrote it, he was like, there's no fixing this person. This needs to be a situation where she cleans everything up by blowing up the last survivors, and that's the end of it. That's out of the blue.
I think that the end of this movie is really well done.
Yeah.
I struggled with everything before that.
Yeah, when it's just a character piece, and it's just really bleak and hard to watch people stuck in these situations, it's a slog for sure. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily editorial or pacing issues. It's just it's unappealing.
Yeah. I mean, there's really, I'm gonna say there's not much happening, but it's slice of life. It's like this is just we're getting snippets of her daily life.
Yeah, but I can see why he incorporated stuff like the concert because he wanted to personalize it to her and her own actual real life interests, sort of mapping them onto the character. And you also get the impression that her behind the drum set is like literally the best thing that's ever happened to her. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately that ever will happen to her. But yeah, I think it's probably a decent rewrite. I can't imagine that I would have been able to watch the second half of this movie if she kills Hopper in the middle.
Oh, no.
And then it's just a slow movie of her going to therapy for the rest of it. I think that would have been hard.
Well, yeah, and I think the entire movie based around therapy is just there's probably even less there than there is in this film.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that was probably the right choice. But at the same time, it's just really not my kind of film.
Sure.
So I struggled with it, though I did not enjoy, because again, it's a really, really sad film. I I think the end was impactful.
Right.
I'll say. But I just kind of wish that the rest of it maybe not leaving it so much of like a total mystery as to what her relationship was before.
I was actually impressed that they didn't foreshadow it more, the paternal abuse.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we do get the weird kiss in the beginning, and he's talking about, am I as sexy as Elvis?
Yeah.
And then we don't really come back to it again
Right.
until the last scene. And so I just thought that was very intentional that they avoided hinting at that anymore moving forward.
Sure.
Because they have so many conversations, just the two of them, that you would expect more of this to come up, but it never did.
Well, I mean, I feel like it reflects life in that way, where people are going to brush this stuff under the rug and then like try to never bring it up.
It's possible that he thought when he got out of prison they were just going to pretend like it never happened.
Yeah.
And then he got to this really desperate place where he was like, hey, remember that thing we used to do? Maybe we should start doing that again. And she's like, we're not going to do that anymore. Like she made the decision the same way she did with the cab driver that this is over right now. And then I'm going to clean up the rest of this mess. No one's going to fix that truck. No one's going to fix me. No one's going to fix my mom. We're done. I did my concert. I'm a rock star. The end.
Well, and just the whole concept that her father hasn't changed.
Right.
Like, I don't know if she wanted him to change, but he definitely has not. Prison has not changed or reformed him in any way.
Yeah. And she doesn't see herself changing either.
Yeah. And she just wants control. And this was her means of control.
Right.
She's going out on her terms.
But I think the performances from everyone are pretty great. I feel like Dennis Hopper is kind of leaning on his Dennis Hopper character, which he plays in a lot of things. I think even Linda Manz, though, is doing a pretty decent job of child acting for her part in this story.
Yeah. And I easily see why Natasha Lyonne would gravitate toward a film like this.
And I guess what happened was because Chloe Sevigny is in Gummo with Linda Manz.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had conversations about this movie, and then she checked it out and found out, the story of home video releases being botched and how the film never really got its due. And so she put together with Natasha to raise the money and actually get a really nice Blu-ray out of it.
Yeah.
And it looks great. It's a really great scan. And I'm glad that whoever had the actual print of it, or maybe even the negatives, took such good care of it in the intervening years, because it's nice to see that it's been taken care of. I think it's a thumbs up for me because it's harrowing and the performances are pretty great across the board, and I think it's a worthwhile story. I would say if you're into Dennis Hopper and you want something dark to watch, this is a good movie.
Yeah, I couldn't give this one a thumbs down.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but it's definitely not my kind of movie. So although it is a thumbs up, it is not going to get highly ranked.
Yeah.
I'll give it a thumbs down.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry. I was not into this. And then when the ending just kind of started rolling out of all this stuff happening, I was like, I'm not even sure I'm watching the same movie anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this stuff is the most intensely Dennis Hopper contributed.
Yeah.
What are we thinking Letterboxd on this?
So I have it at 35 out of 47 because I really don't think I'd ever want to watch this movie again. It is above Green Ice and below Shoot the Moon.
All right. Richard.
I am moving it. I have it in 39th, which puts it below Last Shark, but above I Ought to Be in Pictures.
I have it in 12th out of 47, which is right under Death Trap and just above Quest for Fire. Our writer-director here was Dennis Hopper. He obviously got his start as an actor, co-starring with James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause and Giant. After a wealth of TV roles, Hopper transitioned to the film world and celebrated titles like Cool Hand Luke, Hang 'em High, Monkey's Movie Head, and True Grit. His career evolved again when he moved behind the camera to direct seminal Easy Rider, which earned him recognition from the Cannes Film Festival, nominated for the Palme d'Or, and Hopper won the award for Best First Work and the Academy Awards with nominations for writing and acting for Nicholson. Soon after, the relative failure of his Easy Rider follow-up, The Last Movie, paused his directorial career for a decade before this film's release. Obviously, he plays Don here, and in the commentary, he speaks extensively on the inspirations he found in French New Wave filmmakers Godard and Truffaut, which had previously informed his choices on Easy Rider, which might be the closest to French New Wave that American film has ever presented. Hopper continued acting in that time in films like Kid Blue, Mad Dog Morgan, Apocalypse Now, and so far on the show, King of the Mountain. After this, he shows up in The Osterman Weekend, My Science Project, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Blue Velvet, all on the way to his magnum opus portraying legendary interdimensional monarch King Koopa in the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Hell yeah.
And later, in True Romance, Speed, Waterworld, Jesus' Son, and Paul Haggis' Crash. The original writer and original director, Leonard Yakir, had previously wrote something called The Morning Suit, which he also directed. Brenda Nielson, this is her only credit. Gary Jules Jouvenat wrote and produced this film. The music here came from Tom Lavin. This was his first composer credit, not much else I recognized, but he also has lots of music editor credits on the Warner Brothers Saturday cartoons of the 90s. And obviously, Neil Young's music is being played throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
The cinematographer here was Mark Champion. He also lit Slipstream in '73, not much else I recognized. Doris Dick was the editor. Not many other credits I recognized. Linda Manz plays Cebe. Before this, she'd appeared in Days of Heaven, The Wanderers, and a 1981 title we'll come back to with a minisode called Long Shot, featuring Leif Garrett as a world foosball champion. Later, she shows up in Gummo and The Game. Sharon Farrell played Kathy. Before this, she shows up in the '69 film Marlowe, The Reavers, and so far on the show, The Stuntman. Next season, she's back for Sweet 16 and Lone Wolf McQuaid. Later, she's in Night of the Comet, Can't Buy Me Love, and an episode of Freddy Krueger series Freddy's Nightmares. Don Gordon played Charlie. Before this, he shows up in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Bullet, Hopper's previous film, The Last Movie, and current Patreon poll candidate, The Towering Inferno. So far on the show, we've seen him in The Final Conflict and The Beast Within, and then a bunch of TV work, including a MacGyver, on the way to small roles in Lethal Weapon and Exorcist 3. So he's in Omen 3 and Exorcist 3. Raymond Burr played Dr. Brean. He was in an American adaptation of Fritz Lang's M. He's also Steve Martin in the American adaptation of Godzilla in '56. He's in Rear Window, but he's certainly best known for 271 episodes of Perry Mason, if not for his 195 episode turn as Robert T. Ironside on Ironsides. He's back later this season for Airplane 2, and then basically transitioned to Perry Mason TV movies, like 4 or 5 a year into the 90s. Leon Ericksen played Paul. This is his only acting credit, but he went under the pseudonym Eric Allen in the credits. He has art department credits in Brewster McCloud, Star Wars Episode 4, and so far on the show Barbarossa. He was also the art director on Hopper's The Last Movie and this, and recently for us in Patreon poll winner California Split. He's also back this season as the art director of Hammett. Fiona Brody played Carol. Not many other credits I recognized. David L. Crowley played Anderson. This is his second acting credit after something called Upriver in '79. Later, he shows up in The Gray Fox, First Blood, another MacGyver episode, and later Cocktail. Joan Hoffman played Jean. Almost no credits, except that she did craft services on a short film called The Good Time Girls, which by insane coincidence, I happened to work on.
Hey!
I processed the dailies for the film while I was working in PhotoKen's Next Lab department. It was written and directed by, I suspect, Joan's daughter, Courtney Hoffman, who was Quentin Tarantino's girlfriend at the time, and she had just worked as the costume designer on Hateful Eight. According to IMDb, she's currently adapting that short into a feature with the same title. Courtney Hoffman also worked as a costume designer on a film called Life Partners, written and directed by our friend Susanna Fogel. David Ackridge played the teacher. He's also in The Gray Fox with David Crowley, who played Anderson. Jim Burns played the party singer. He does a voice in the animated series Camp Candy. He plays Noah in the TV movie Omen sequel, Omen 4: The Awakening. He does voices in The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Double Dragon, The New Adventures of Madeline. He voices Dr. Light on Mega Man. He was Joe Dawson in 97 episodes of the Highlander series. He's Inferno in Beast Wars Transformers, and he reprises the Joe Dawson role for several subsequent Highlander series. John Anderson played TV interviewer. I didn't see him in there, did you?
I was trying to, I saw him in the cast, and so I was kind of looking for him, but I'm trying to remember where there was
a TV interviewer.
Interviewer. Like, there was the only thing I ever saw of an interview was the kid with the camera talking to the band.
But definitely wasn't Anderson. He shows up in 3 episodes of Perry Mason, but he was also in Psycho as California Charlie. We've seen him on the show in Smokey and the Bandit 2 and Zoot Suit. Later, he's Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis in 8 Men Out. But to our eyes, Anderson is best known as Harry Jackson, the grandfather of the titular MacGyver on MacGyver. I think that's everything for Out of the Blue. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't believe it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast. What's that sound?
We got one!
That's right. It's a new patron, Dennis Bryan. As a $5 patron of the show, Dennis now has access to 57 full-size 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Black Christmas, The Destructors, aka The Marseille Contract, Emmanuel, Freebie and the Bean, The Godfather Part 2, The Island at the Top of the World, Journey Back to Oz, The Man with the Golden Gun, Messiah of Evil, The Towering Inferno, and Young Frankenstein for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Soggy Bottom, USA, which IMDb describes like so. In a small southern town, the local sheriff tries to keep everything peaceful and under control. We leave you now with a trailer for Soggy Bottom, USA, or at least an original song composed for the film, because I don't know if we've even had a trailer. We leave you with that. Goodbye.
Out along the bayous down in Louisiana, Spanish moss are hanging from the cypress knees. Little piece of heaven nestled in the swampland, Soggy Bottom, Louisiana, hidden in the trees. Cottonmouths and alligators chasing down a dealer. It's the chasingest place that you ever did see. Soggy Bottom citizens chasing down a dream or two. Hound dog chase a coon and run